Hopefully, you're all here for the launch of Historic England Open Data Hub. We'll do this in two parts. There's a double act between me and Dave. Firstly, I'm going to talk a bit about the background to what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're changing our licensing. And then Dave is going to take you through some of the technical side to it and how we built it and what it consists of, and give you a little live demo, hopefully, if that all works. And then lastly, we'll be able to take any questions you might have. So to say a bit about the background, firstly, HE has a data download site at the moment, but it's very out of date and badly in need of replacing. It doesn't meet current expectations of our users. There's a number of regulations that have changed that we need to keep abreast of. This all ties in with the HE corporate plans, and we want to better align ourselves with the FAIR principles, and also this is all part of the HE data strategy. So what we have at the moment is a data download site. Now I'm expecting this, I know there are some people in the audience, having looked at the attendance list, who are users of the data download site. And what this does at the moment is it's a whole series of data sets, such as the NHLE, and you can download the spatial data with metadata, and in the case of NHLE, then a link to the record on the website. But it only allows, there's no APIs, you can't take a feed. It's only got one format of data, that's a shapefile, which is proprietary software. You have to download each time, extract, transform and load to get it into your systems. User data won't automatically be updated. You've got to keep coming back for further updates. And one of the most common things we've been asked by customers increasingly over the last couple of years is why they can't just take a feed of our spatial data so they don't have to keep coming back and going through that whole process. So the data download site really has reached the end of its natural life. So we need to do something more modern that meets customer expectations and regulations. So saying a bit about regulations, well, firstly, the first thing change we did actually make to the data download site was when GDPR came in, and we looked at the information we were collecting about users and then thought, actually, are we using this? Do we need any of it? Could we actually justify any of it if we were challenged? And the answer came back no. So we removed the requirement to register, click to accept terms and conditions, and log into the download. And of course, with GDPR now being brought into UK law, we now have UK GDPR. And so we're going to have to keep abreast of that should that start to diverge from GDPR. There's another piece of European legislation, Inspire, where we have to publish our spatial data in a downloadable format with a compliant metadata. Originally, we were doing that through the DEFRA hub. Now, this is giving us the ability to actually bring all this in-house. This is I just spotted a typo on my slide. That should actually read public sector bodies. Oh no, sorry, that's the one below. First, public sector bodies, websites and mobile applications accessibility regulations. A lot of our web pages weren't accessible by the standards we expected to make them. And so therefore we've got to actually put something in place that does meet those. Then this is the crucial one, this is the reuse of public sector information regulations. Now this expects public bodies, such as ourselves and government departments, to make their data and information available in as open a format as possible. And one of the ways to do that, which it recommends, or the guidance recommends, is using open government licensing. So part of what we're doing really here is trying to better align ourselves and ensure we are compliant with these pieces of legislation. So I don't know how familiar most of you are with open government licensing. It was designed by the National Archives for use with public sector bodies, and it was broadly based to be comparable with CC BY, which is Creative Commons. And that's the most, CC BY is the most open form of Creative Commons, and that allows the data to be reused, to be transformed, and specifically includes commercial usage. And those 2015 regulations, one of the drivers for that was a desire to boost the digital economy. So the 2015 regulations specifically do include allowing government information to be used commercially. So a few things that not everybody realises: it can be used for Crown copyrighted material. The listed building list, for example, is Crown copyrighted. And this is the next one. It's quite a commonly misheld belief. It can be used for third-party copyrighted material in a database where you have database rights. Now, if you're familiar with database rights, this is where you bring information together from a range of different sources into a database in order to create something which is different from all those sources. And many of those pieces of information will be third-party copyrighted. But to meet fair use criteria, as it's often called, although the legislation doesn't actually mention fair use, you have to meet 3 criteria: where something is directly relevant, it's not excessive in length, and it is fully attributed and referenced. Now, this has caused a lot of internal discussion. There's a lot of corporate fear around this, particularly with a lot of our older information. I can talk about how we've addressed that later. And lastly, it can be used where data sets contain Ordnance Survey derived data, which of course it does in this case, because we're talking about spatial data for things like the National Heritage List for England, and those data sets have all been exempted by the OS. As I said, it fits in very well with our corporate plan. I'm sure you've already read, all of you have read our corporate plan. I have, but just to refresh your memories, Part 7 is all about expanding digital availability of our assets to improve access, participation, and user experience. We are wanting to better align ourselves with the FAIR principles. Firstly, findable. Well, individual entries are very findable. There's rich metadata behind each entry, and there's also very good metadata for the data sets themselves. And it certainly is findable because the Open Data Hub has been findable by Google for a while now, even though we hadn't publicly launched it and we were going through a semi-public beta. It's got to be accessible. I've talked a bit about accessibility earlier. It's got to be interoperable. So we're producing something here which is marine readable. And also there are other things we want to do in the future to make that more so by putting some of our data sets in a format where people could, say, load them into triple stores if they wanted to. But that's this is possibly things we're going to do further down the line. And it's got to be reusable. And that's where the open government licensing really comes in. So before we actually get on to looking at the Open Data Hub, how does this all fit in? Well, and where we go from here. So we're going to be making far wider use of the OGL for HE information and data. So that's going to include all of the descriptions on the NHLE. In theory, but not everybody does, if you want to reuse listed building descriptions in part or whole chunk of the list, you are supposed to come to us for a free license, which we will then send back out to you. That's all going to be going. And this is where there was some corporate nervousness about the National Heritage List for England, because it is a lot of information in the list is not only compiled from those visits by listing inspectors, but from research using the different publications, other people's surveys. But as I explained, the NHLE is our database right, because we have brought together information from many different sources. The important thing we have to ensure is that everything is directly that we use is directly relevant, it is fully sourced, and anything from one particular source in any particular record is not excessive. So to do that, to firstly make sure that new listing descriptions keeps those rules. I wrote a section for this on the advice guidance that goes to all our listing advisors. And also we have agreed with DCMS that we can use our minor amendments policy to edit or remove anything which might possibly be in breach of copyright if we are challenged, so effectively creating a takedown policy. And that is what's paved the way for us to actually say we can make this open for anybody to use in any way they like. It fits in with this like England digital strategy. I would love to be able to talk to you more about the digital strategy today, but as you'll see from the slide, it's being used shortly. So I was asked not launched shortly. So I'm being asked to say not to say too much at this stage, but hopefully some of you will be involved in seeing that when it's launched, and that will also have further details about some what I think is very exciting work we're going to be doing along our path to greater use of open data in the future. And this is just a starting point for the ODH. We want to improve the functionality. We've already done so with some of the feedback and the beta testers we've had. We are going to be adding more data sets. At the moment, the ODH has just got the same data sets as we have on the data download side, just in more formats and with the API option. Once we've had a period of parallel running, we will be taking the old data download side down. And then the ODH will be our main way of making this data public. And now we're going to be, and then we'll start adding more data sets. And hopefully it won't just be the spatial data sets we are making public in this way. But at the moment, we're talking to the owners of a number of those data sets across Historic England about their possible inclusion in the Open Data Hub going forward. And lastly, as I said, it's going to be our APIs and downloads for non-spatial data sets as well as the spatial. So I have an open data hub, and I think this is the point at which I'm going to transfer over to Dave, who hopefully has joined us. So are you there, Dave?
I am here indeed. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Dave. So yeah, I'll just give it a quick rattle through where we are and how we got here and where we're going. So I shall hand over to you. I'm sharing my screen. You probably want me to advance slides.
Yes, please.
So
yeah,
just
if you
click
would.
your fingers or something when you, and,
Okay.
and I will do so.
Yes, I'll do Chris Whitty's famous line. So, as the slide says, we talked about why having an open data hub. What we really wanted to do is to be able to open up our data to a much wider audience. As Martin says, at the moment we have the data download site, which enables people to download the data in the shapefile format. Which I guess is two things. Firstly, it relies on you being able to download that data and to then use it in your system, which requires a fair amount of technical expertise to do the whole extract, transform, load process back into your system. Also, as he says, obviously that's kind of out of date from the day you download it. So we're trying to make it a much more usable data set across a variety of systems. The other thing we're trying to do is to make it the single point of truth. So all of the data flowing out from Historic England will come from the Open Data Hub. And in particular, for instance, with the NHLE data, the National Heritage List for England data, we're trying to make it consistent with the NHLE website. So you'll see now that because the NHLE data on the Open Data Hub is published daily, it will now tally exactly with the NHLE website, which is always up to date. And then the final point there is, I think, as Martin says, we do frequently have requests for data in an API format. So we're trying to match the customer need there. I think it's the expectation now that data's served in that way. Okay, next slide, please, Martin. So so this is what our Open Data Hub looks like currently. So as you can see from the image, we have a website and we have these data sets currently embedded on there. So it's currently the same data sets which are available on the data download site, and there will be a period of parallel running between the two. And then at some point in the future, we will switch off the old data download site. So you can see we've got the NHLE data sets, which includes your favorites, the listed buildings, scheduled monuments, and so on. And then also we have the conservation areas where that data has been supplied to us, and also the Heritage at Risk Register for 2021. And then obviously once the 2022 hard data is published, that will be made available on the Open Data Hub too. Okay, next slide, please. So just a bit about the underlying technology of the Open Data Hub. So so it's built on, so it's a hub site in ArcGIS Online, and this is very similar to other Open Data Hubs. For instance, the Natural England Open Data Hub is built in exactly the same way. So it's on ArcGIS Online, and because effectively the process is that we upload the data onto ArcGIS Online, and then we effectively share it to the Open Data Hub. And what we've also done is shared it into Esri's Living Atlas too, so the data is available from both those locations, and it's exactly the same data. So if you're an Esri user and you're on ArcGIS Online, it's very easy to access the data from Living Atlas too. Okay, next slide. So just to say about the download, so you can now download it in these different file formats. So obviously some of these are open formats, and then we have the shapefile and GDB formats in there as well, which are again obviously Esri formats. And then last slide. So just a bit about the APIs. Again, the APIs are available in those two formats, the Esri REST format and the GeoJSON. Again, I think most GIS analysts will now be familiar with how to use those kinds of APIs. And I'm going to be doing a quick demo as well, just to show you how it works as well. So that's probably a good time to jump into the demo. So
I'll stop sharing now, Dave. Shall I? Then
okay,
you can
thank
take
you.
over.
Okay,
Just
just
if we do share screen.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think that's right. So you should be able to see my screen now. So if I just navigate to the Open Data Hub, now as Martin says, if you Google it, you should be able to find it quite straightforwardly. And we have it embedded on our webpage, so you can see the link at the top, and we'll share that after the presentation too. But again, you should be able to navigate to it fairly easy from our website. And as you can see here, we've got those 3 data sets listed out, so the NHLE, conservation areas, and HAR. If we just take a look at conservation areas as the first example, you can just click this button to say get spatial data for conservation areas, and this will take you into the Open Data Hub. So you can see as it loads, you get this kind of preview map on the right-hand side. So you just get a preview of the data. You can click on the features to get the attributes and what have you. But just to say that's not really what the Open Data Hub is about. That's just a preview. I'll just accept the cookies while I'm there, so there's one less box on the screen. So what the Open Data Hub is really about is accessing the data, and this is really just showing a preview. So what I'm going to do just to access the API is I'm just simply going to go to this box at the bottom to say I want to use this, and then I'm going to choose this one, View API Resources, and I'm just going to copy this top, the GeoService API. I'm just going to use this blue box at the end to copy that URL, and then what I'm going to do is just move across into ArcGIS Online. I'm just going to go to the map viewer. Zoom in so we can see the base map, and then I'm going to go to Add and Web Service, and then you simply paste that URL into the box there and say add to map. It has a little think about it, and now as you can see, we've added that conservation area layer onto our web map. We can't see it at the moment because there's a scale dependency, so all the symbology and the layer properties of that come through with the web service. But if I zoom in a bit, you'll be able to see that the data has come through with the symbology. And if I click on the map, you'll see you get all the pop-ups as well. So that's how to use the APIs. Now, if I just go back to this main page, you can see, so whereas with conservation areas, it just goes straight into that data set. With the NHLE, it's kind of a hierarchy. And so there's kind of each data set is listed out underneath that top layer. And for this example, if I just choose battlefields, so I'm just going to show you how to download the data now. So just choose battlefields. Having a little think. There we are. And this time I'm going to use this little cloud. So, I mean, I guess you can see the preview of the data again. And this time I'm just going to use this little cloud button to download the data. And it's going to give me those choice of formats that I showed earlier. And I'm just going to choose this download option. And you can see it just downloads in my browser in the usual way. So now if I move across again to ArcGIS Online, I'm just going to sign in because in order to upload a shapefile, you need to sign in. So I'm just going to drag that downloaded data onto my browser to upload it. So ArcGIS Online, it knows it's a shapefile. It's asking if I want to create a hosted feature layer, and in this case I do, so I'll say yes to that. And then I've already got one called that, so I'll just give it a unique name and a tag. And then it will just upload the data, save it in ArcGIS Online, and then create a hosted feature layer. And then again, we can just open that in the map viewer. And we'll zoom in a bit so we've got the base map. And again, you can see the data is displayed. So in this case, there's no symbology and there's no layer properties because they don't come with the shapefile. And we can click on the data, and again, we get the pop-ups as they're stored in the downloaded data. In this case, all the NHLE data also contains this hyperlink, so you can just click on the hyperlink to take you straight to the NHLE webpage for that list entry. Okay, so that's the end of my demonstration. So I guess it's time for questions now.
Thank you very much, David and Martin. Does anybody have a question? Please raise your hands and I'll unmute you so you can ask it, or if you pop it in the chat, that would be great. I'll just give a minute to see if anybody pops their hands up.
Meantime, I'll just say that, of course, they was using Esri ArcGIS Online, and of course we're going from Esri system, but this is not system for proprietary at all, which is why we've got all the different formats and the choice of standards of API feed. So you could, because I've seen some presentations this week using QGIS. So obviously why people use QGIS because it's cheap. It's very well. It's open source, so but you could easily use that with this, couldn't you, Dave? Or any other GIS systems around.
I should have mentioned that. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. So, so obviously you can use, well, you can certainly download the data and use that in QGIS, but then you can also use the APIs directly in QGIS too, and that works very well actually. So.
Brilliant. I can't see any hands at the minute. Does anybody have a question? Or are you just all blown away by this amazing resource, which does absolutely look fantastic? Oh, here's a question that's just popped in. So I missed the initial first couple of minutes. I wondered if this was showing HE data only or was capable of tying into local HERs.
Well, firstly, this is HE's Open Data Hub. So this is our hub for sharing historic England data. We do also have conservation area data on there. The reason being for that, we first started collecting and publishing local authorities' conservation area data to help them meet their requirements under Inspire, because not all of them were set up to be able to do that. And we also realised having as near complete a national layer of conservation areas was something that was good both for ourselves internally and for the whole sector. We would certainly be willing to talk to any local authorities who wanted to do something similar to more of their historic environment data. And I would love to see HERs sharing their records via APIs and downloads, making it more accessible. But this is purely for HE data, and we've got a whole load of data sets waiting in the wings where we're hoping to agree with the data owners and actually in some cases address some technical issues in order to be able to make those available over the ODH as well. So watch this space, it's going to grow.
Brilliant, thank you. We have another, I'll just have a look at the comments. Okay. Oh, it's just a comment, just to say, I don't know if you can see the comments yourselves, but if not, I'll just quickly read them out. It says, Beth, thank you, Beth, from GIS team at West Berkshire Council. I've been one of the beta testers, and as far as they know, they've been really pleased with it so far. So that's some feedback for you there. Thank you for sharing that, Beth. That's always good to hear. And Claire has said, Claire Boardman, thank you very much. Just a compliment, very neat user interface. Well done. Looking forward to seeing the data store grow and the wider digital strategy. And Alexandra has asked, when will the old system go?
Shall I take this one, Martin? So that's we haven't got a definite date for it yet. So it will depend on usage. So what we're kind of hoping is that we will see the usage of the Open Data Hub grow, and that we'll see the usage of the data download site tail off. And when we begin to see, you know, the usage of the data download site tailing off, then we will make a decision then to withdraw it.
I just had a message from one of my colleagues in the audience saying, please can you point out that the conservation area data set isn't complete? I don't know if we did, because some local authorities asked us not to publish or have not supplied us with their conservation area data as they intended to do so via their own websites. In which case you can actually get our data, and then you can go to the individual ones where we don't have the coverage, and you can take a feed from them or download.
Brilliant, thank you for that clarification. When is you may have already mentioned this, but the official launch of this? You said you'll be sharing the link, and you've already done that in the chat. Will there be additional promotion across different mediums for this as well?
Yes, we do. We are talking to our comms people about that, aren't we, Dave? So
yeah, that's right. So there should be a press release on our website, and I believe it's also going out on Twitter and LinkedIn too.
Perfect. That's brilliant. It sounds like it's going to, well, it looks a fantastic resource. So it's always brilliant when you can actually see it in action as well. So thank you very much for that demonstration too, David. Any other comments or questions or live questions if anyone wants to raise their hand?
I see there's a question about GLHER.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, which I can take. So yes, GLHER is moving over to a system called to a system built in Arches. The system's called Keystone. It is live internally now and we are looking forward to a public launch in the new year.
Brilliant, thank you. And that was a question from Richard Hughes. Thank you, Richard. Brilliant. Any final comments or questions then for Martin and David, or any final comments from yourselves as well, Martin and David, for everybody before things wrap up for this session.
No, I'd just like to say thank you all for coming, and thanks for the supportive comments we've had in the chat.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, so if there's nothing further, thank you very much to you both. Oh, hang on, we have a final question.
Do watch this space for our digital strategy when that's launched. Yes, there's going to be some really exciting things in there, but I've been told not to say too much about it, except tee it up and say it's going to be really good to see.
I'm trying to read Kevin's comment. Will other HERs? I can't. Is there a typo in there? Can you?
We'll have HERs gates to be in arches. Arches, there will be arches for HERs launched off the back of Keystone. I can't say exactly when that's going to be, but that will be available. That will then become something that's available to HERs, but it's just giving them options.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think that's it. We've just got a few thank yous, and this is just to reiterate, this session has been recorded, so it will be uploaded later on today for anybody that wants to check back, or for anybody that may have missed it as well. So I'd like to thank both David and Martin for their time this afternoon and for sharing this resource with us, and just to say excited to see the launch and the press release, and I hope everybody's enjoyed the session. So thank you both very much.
I did put a link in the chat if anybody wants to go and play with it straight away.
Wonderful. We'll do that. That's a good way to spend your evenings, everybody, so please do. Brilliant. And as I said, I'm sure Martin and David are happy to hear from you if you have any feedback or comments, and especially good feedback as well. If you're finding it really useful, that's always great to hear. Otherwise, brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you everybody. Bye. Bye.